Let's todo, everybody. For those of us who follow the biblical calendar, it is the second day of Yom Teruah within the diaspora. And Nikeva and I wish you for those who are observing for those who observed what has become the modern Rosh Hashanah, which is really Yom Teruah, although there is precedent for Yom Teruah being the fiscal year, and I'll blog about that later, and I promise to blog about it. So for those who are celebrating Yom Teruah or Rosh Hashanah, really Rosh Hashanah le Kesafim, which is the fiscal year, or any of the other high holy days. First of all, Letro Tova, Leshana Tova, Ve Gemar Kadima Tova. And first of all, I apologize for having made this video so late. I promised to get up early, and then that didn't work out, and then I was going to get ready by 3 o'clock, and that didn't work out because I had to report someone first, and then I tried to record the video, but it kept disconnecting at points, and then I was checking out the news. By the way, let me say something really quickly. I know the news about George Zimmerman just broke. I'm reading on Fox News right now that, let's see, Lake Mary Deputy Chief Colin Morgan told Fox News that George Zimmerman had been in investigative detention and was being held handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser procedure until probable cause is established for an arrest. Shelley Zimmerman, called the police after 2 p.m. They're trying to determine what happened, and the deputy chief said there were allegations that Zimmerman came to the home and Shelley's dad was the aggressor. Police say that Shelley told them that Zimmerman had his hand on his gun and became aggressive and punched her dad. So it really sounds like things got out of hand, and it wouldn't surprise me if Shelley Zimmerman's dad became the aggressor and was trying to protect his daughter because he thought that, hey, maybe George Zimmerman had snapped or something. And then, because sometimes parents get like that, unfortunately, and one incident doesn't always connect to another, so it's tempting to think, hey, George Zimmerman did this to Shelley Zimmerman, now he might really done it to Trayvon. We gotta remember that, again, innocent until proven guilty, and it sounds like the story so far is that Shelley Zimmerman's dad started it, and George Zimmerman perhaps responded inappropriately, and things just got out of hand. That sometimes happens, and some incidents aren't always related to each other, at least in a direct way, because there are no coincidences in life, but one incident doesn't always relate to another in a direct way. And anyway, so that's the shtick with the George Zimmerman news item that just broke. And also, speaking of news items, I've changed my position on Syria as well. Before I said that we ought to get involved in Syria, and unfortunately, and I'm like others in this too, except I think that I have a different angle on this. What ought to be going on is that obviously, besides the Syrians getting involved and everyone else in the region getting involved and leaving the U.S. out of it, what we ought to do is tell the Syrian church to get involved. Because first of all, when the early church was being persecuted and people were complaining, oh, Obama's just going over there to kill Christians, and they were getting into all these conspiracy theories, even if the conspiracy theories that, for example, Obama was going over there to kill all the Christians, even if that kind of stuff was true, the Syrian church would need to band together to help Syria and to help their fellow Syrians. And the early church, when they were being persecuted by the Roman government, they did not write to other governments asking for help. They didn't even really ask the Roman government for help. They depended on each other, and they depended on the church in other parts of the Mediterranean and other areas. And so if there were ever a time for the church to be the church, especially in places like Syria, that time is now. And what we, who are Christians and who are Americans and who are otherwise in the West, what we can do is we can, just like during, for lack of a better term, and I know people have made Holocaust comparisons and said like, oh, this is just like Assad, Assad is just like Hitler, and, he's just, well, first of all, Assad is going after everybody, not just particular ethnic groups, and to compare what Assad is doing to what Hitler did is an insult to those like me who lost relatives in the Holocaust. And speaking of the Holocaust and of losing relatives, those of us who are Americans and those of us who are Christians can do for the Syrian church and for others within the region of Syria and Israel and other places in the region. What we can do is we can send support and prayers and whatever else we can send or do. We can do the kinds of things that, frankly, my great-grandma Gaddis should have done for my relatives, for her relatives during the Holocaust. And as I said before, this is a question of, and this is why I keep bringing up the thing with great-grandma Gaddis, are we going to repeat her mistakes and do to our relatives what she did to them when they were in Kotzitzi, and not all of them have been able to make Aliyah. And this is a time where, as I said, I'm bringing it up again because now I'm faced with a question of, God forbid, what if things get out of hand and Syria does something to Israel before Damascus completely falls? And what am I going to do? Am I going to repeat the mistakes that great-grandma Gaddis made? So this is a time, like where he said, I'm going to be faced with that question. Am I going to repeat great-grandma Gaddis' mistakes? And also, am I going to repeat the mistakes of what she did to our relatives in terms of the Syrians and the Syrian people? And of course, my relatives in places like Israel and other places within the region. And like I said, if there were ever a time for the church to be the church, that time is now. And the church in America and other places in the West needs to support the Syrian church and anyone else that is obviously innocent and who those Syrians are helping. Of course, we don't want to be supporting those like Assad and other people like that, but we do want to be supporting the Syrian church and innocent Syrians, and especially the Syrian church who has really done their research and who really are pro-Israel, because unfortunately many Syrian Christians are either not really Christians or they're misguided and hold some anti-Semitic views, like that one Syrian nun who said that she has proof that the rebels did the gas attacks and she's being all anti-Semitic when Israeli interception, and if you watched Geraldo at Large on Saturday night, when one general on the ground in particular, said that Assad did it, and he kept getting reports and reports and reports. And in terms of the Israeli interception, Israel would have no reason to lie about who did the chemical attacks. And the same, as a lot of people have pointed out, the same weapons that we said were not in Iraq somehow ended up in Syria. So, as one person said on Geraldo's Facebook page, somebody owes Bush an apology, because the same weapons that we like to say that Saddam Hussein didn't have somehow ended up in Syria. So either Bush lied and Julian Assange lied, or people are going to have to accept that, in the words of my dad, and in the words of my dad of all people, you can't change history. To this day, I still remember that pivotal moment. We were sitting at Pop-Up and Grandma's kitchen table. Pop-Up said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and Dad says the weapons were moved to Syria, and then Pop-Up said something else, and then Dad said, you can't change history, Dad. And we're seeing right now that even